The views and comments expressed on the following radio program by its hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of rmconair.com or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Knowledge of self.
Radio.
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 Uplift the mind, boy, I'll bring out the sun. Uplift the mind, boy, I'll bring out the sun.
Peace. Welcome to the Knowledge of Self radio show. I'm your host, Jerule Allah. I got my brothers with me.
Peace, Jerule Allah.
Peace, Ture Allah.
Indeed, peace. So on this Wisdom Equality Day, the 26th, we'd like to get into the show. So we got some current events to hit you with before we kind of get ready for our topic. Really what we're going to be building on today is poisonous meats and packaging and food fraud. So that's a real big topic, and it's going on in a lot of different places in the world, Europe, different parts. Africa is really key, as we'll probably talk about later on the show, as it relates to poisonous foods and food fraud. But I know, Jerule, you had a current event?
Yeah, and this show is brought to you by Global Position Solutions, and you can get with them at www.globalpsolutions.net.
Indeed. Also, I want to hit you guys with the call-in number. That's 323-965-1600. So, give us a call if you want to add on the show. You got some questions for us.
Yeah, so the current event that we're going to deal with today is it comes from the World Cancer Research Fund, which basically released some information that, I guess they sat down and cross-referenced and studied 7,000 different clinical studies. And they wanted to figure out the link between diet and cancer. So basically, after they researched all of this, they came to find that processed meat is too dangerous for human consumption, and consumers should stop buying it, eating it altogether for the rest of their lives. Bottom line.
Just give it all up, right?
Yeah, just leave it alone. Leave it alone.
That's interesting.
So the issue with it is a chemical known as sodium nitrite. And basically it's like they call it a color fixer. So basically when you get the meat, it's been dyed to look like it's fresh.
Right.
So they basically add it to meats to make the meat look more fresh and lively.
Right. Yeah. Realistic. Right.
Yeah. When the meat, in all actuality, is spoiled. Also, it's like it kind of limits the production of bacteria. So.
Wait. Spoiled, huh?
Yeah, a lot of the meat spoiled. So, in my research, I actually came across something called I think it's called pink slime or. Yeah. Basically, they take it from different parts of the different animals that they don't end up using. They mesh it together, and it's pretty much spoiled. Well, it is spoiled. So what they do is they'll dip it in like ammonia, clean out the bacteria. It only cleans out some, and then that gets sent to different companies and they use it in their meat. So
Chicken nuggets.
yeah, exactly. Chicken nuggets, a lot of other different types of meat. So.
Which that solves the question about where chicken nuggets come from. 'cause
Well, a part of
chickens
it
don't have nuggets.
right. So some of the things that that would be considered processed meat are bacon, sausage, hot dogs, sandwich meat, packaged ham, pepperoni, salami, virtually all red meat used in frozen prepared meals. So all of you out there who tend to eat those frozen dinners,
Right, microwave
because they're
meals.
quick and convenient. Yeah, you might want to think twice about that. It's also in beef jerky, frozen pizza with meat, canned soups with meat, ravioli with meat, pasta, kids meals with red meat, sandwich meat at restaurants, and the one that stood out to me the most is that nearly all red meat sold to public schools, restaurants, hospitals, hotels, and theme parks.
And theme parks.
Yeah.
Wow, so you pay arm and leg to get in there only to get some spoiled
Spoiled meat
Dyed
that you
meat,
probably paid an arm and a leg for
Right.
too. It's crazy. So.
And that changes the whole meaning of what's on the cutting room floor, man.
Seriously.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's powerful. It gets deeper than that because in 1970, the USDA, they knew that sodium nitrite was a cancer-causing chemical. They fought to actually get it banned, but the food companies lobbied and got that. As you can see, we're still consuming it. So
Right, they had more zeros behind the check.
exactly right. So yeah, so that covers that current event, and that ties right into today's topic. So I thought that was interesting.
Thank you for that, because one of the things I wanted to add on, because there are some people who like to be entertained when, kind of looking for certain types of knowledge. But I would encourage the audience to maybe reread The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, which is a really good novel about the meat, the meat industry in Chicago during like the 1930s.
Okay.
And gives you a really vivid picture of some of the problems that were going on in the meat packing or the meat industry during that time period. And also, for you science fiction buffs out there, check out Soylent Green, starring Charleston Heston, which is has an interesting twist. It's not the greatest film, visually, but the point at the end is really interesting. So check that out. It ties in really well with today's show.
Indeed. So, moving on. So we got some questions that we're going to strive to answer in the show. The first one is, why is meat hazardous? Well, we kind of already answered that, but we'll go a little deeper into that. What is food fraud? How can consumers protect themselves from food fraud? Why is it harmful to feed livestock antibiotics and corn? Also, other livestock. I'll add on to that later. What has the government agencies done to contest this practice? What food on the pyramid are unsafe for consumption? Why did they change it to the food plate? We'll add on to that. And why is the dairy harmful for human consumption? And what alternatives to dairy? So we also have some references. Maybe, Ture, you want to
Sure.
read out some references?
And we always like to give people a few references so that you can always look into this information yourself and also add on, like for today's show. One of the references that we encourage people to look into is a CNN report, www.cnn.com, for 2013. Gives you an idea about what's going on with meat packaging and how hazardous packaged meat is, and Jerule touched a little bit on that. Really interesting videos to add on to that. Also, and this is a website that I encourage everyone to look at, especially after you hear today's show. It's USP.org, which is basically a food database that you can use and put in different ingredients on your, that's labeled on your food. And that will tell you exactly what the chemicals, we're going to use the word chemicals, are in some of your food.
Right.
A really interesting report is titled the Ocean-Based Food Security Report, which gives you a really good insight into what's going on with seafood around the world. And among others, wow, Food Incorporated. Check that film out. So,
Indeed, yeah, that's a great movie to watch, or a documentary.
Yes.
Becomes different like that. In any event, so let's just jump into it. I got a quote. I'm going to read off to you guys. A man can live and be healthy without killing animals for food. Therefore, if he eats meat, he participates in taking animal life merely for the sake of his appetite. And that's by Leo Tolstoy. Probably butchered his name, apologize.
Butchered.
Yeah, right? No pun intended.
right?
But, let's just get into it. So one of the first things we're going to be dealing with is what is food fraud? And I don't know, Jerule, Ture, one of you guys?
Packaged meat.
Yeah, meat and dairy first.
Okay, let's go with that then. Let's get it off. With meat and dairy, we're going to talk about packaged meat and the World Health Report. And, so there's a lot of bacterias, and you kind of touched about some chemicals, but what kind of bacterias are we finding in our meats, like our poultry, our fish?
Yeah, well, if you're unaware, they basically, the conditions of the animals and the way that they treat them is very, very harsh. A lot of these cows, they're basically, put in conditions where they're in dark, for their whole life, the duration of their life. They don't get to see sunlight.
Right. They're not running around in an open field.
Right.
Huh?
They don't see grass. They don't eat grass, none of those different things. They're in confined spaces where there's feces and things of that nature right where they live, So kind of like how Europe used to be in the dark ages, but that's for another show. But so the conditions are very harsh, and then that breeds disease. So what these corporations do is that they use antibiotics to treat these animals so that these animals can not produce so much bacteria in their products.
Right. Also to try and keep them alive.
To keep them
in
alive.
These conditions.
Right. Yeah. So what that does is just like anything else, when you treat something over and over, the bacterias, they learn, and then they say, okay, well, this is what you're treating me with. This is how I can overcome that.
Right.
So you develop like super bugs. So these are bugs that are no antibiotics can treat them. So just about the majority of the meat, unless it's been, antibiotic free and hormone free, you're going to probably get some of these super bugs in your meat.
Right. And to add on the CNN report that we had mentioned on CNN.com, Health, Meat, and Drugs. And it says here that a report was released from the Food and Drug Administration that said 81% of raw ground turkey that was tested was contaminated with antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Yeah.
So, just to add on to what Jerule just built on, when you go to the doctor and you have food poisoning, they're going to give you antibiotics, but then you're going to realize that the antibiotics don't work, so then they're going to have to figure out how to treat you because you've been eating meat that's been treated with antibiotics as well.
Indeed. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I didn't necessarily want to take it to the hospital area, but, you find a lot of things like that similar in hospitals to where different viruses and bacteria just don't die because they keep cleaning it with the same thing. In any event, we're going to take a quick break and definitely get back into this topic and get deeper. So we'll come back after the break in 2 minutes. Peace. Peace, peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self radio show. I'm Jerule Allah.
Peace, Jerule Allah.
Peace, Ture Allah.
Indeed. So before we went to the break, Ture was Ture was telling you guys about the antibiotics and different antibiotics in chickens, and kind of a similarity in hospitals as far as these diseases, bacteria, viruses that become immune to the antibiotics, which are supposed to treat them.
Right, and it had mentioned in this report, it was put out through NARMS, and NARMS is National Antimicrobial Resistance Monitoring System. So they're an agency that monitors the amount of contaminants, or in the form of bacteria, in poultry, red meat, and seafood. So one of the things they found in a report that they put out is that about 69% of pork chops, 55% of ground beef, and 39% of chicken has some form of bacteria in them. And the bacteria, one form is called Campylobacteria and E. coli. And E. coli has been on the scene for a minute now.
Right.
There's always scares it seems like every year there's a scare. Oh, E. coli scare in spinach.
Right, I was going to say spinach is a big one.
And cows and things of that nature.
And Jerule, you were building on why E. coli is in spinach. And could you tell them a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, well, E. coli is actually the issue. The issue actually starts with the cows. They feed cows corn nowadays, and, a cow's stomach is really only meant for grass. So when you start
both of their stomachs,
right? Both of their stomachs. Pardon me. Right. Yeah, so they're only meant for grass. So when you feed it something that it's not normally supposed to be eating, it's going to mess up its digestive system, and then it's going to cause bacteria, E. coli, in the stomach. Then they use the bathroom, and then they grow the spinach not too far off from where the cows live, and that runoff from the feces goes into the spinach, and that's where those spinach scares come from. So
the face that you're making right now, God, is priceless.
It's just,
I want to go in a little bit more, as Jerule was talking about, on what they feed the cows. Not only do they feed them corn, but they also feed them. It's unfortunate to say, a lot of dead cats and dogs from your pet shops that don't get adopted or whatnot. Those go into the feed. They try and do a lot of whatever to kind of make it cheaper and more affordable. And then kind of like you were saying, so they're in these small rooms, like a lot of times, like for chicken, for instance, they're stacked on cages, like 6-7 cages on top of each other. So when they defecate, it's on top of the chicken, and so now they're getting sick. And not only that, they have these giant fans that try and suck out the air. And I was watching this documentary. They said if they turn off these fans for like 3 seconds, everything would die.
Wow.
Yeah, no life would be able to live in that room. And so they have to hit them with all these kind of antibiotics and different things just to try and make them live long enough so that they can chop them up and feed them to us.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, a lot of the animals will die, but those same animals get put in the same meat that they give to us. It's not like they say, oh, they died from a disease, let's take them and bury them over here. Nah, they're going to give them to us to feed because that's money that they're losing.
Yeah, they don't want to lose that money.
Yeah.
I've actually had a close friend of mine. He was on the docks, doing shipping stuff for fishers, different fish and stuff like that. And so from working with a fishing company, this guy came to get tuna. And so, they get it fresh off the thing. So, they cut it open themselves with their own knife. And this guy cuts around this big tumor and just kind of pulls it out and then cuts all the other meat around it, chops it up and takes it with him. Yeah.
And it's interesting that we're having this discussion about seafood because all of us remember the fact that they had a nuclear reactor meltdown in Japan. So, we share the ocean with them, the Pacific Ocean. So considering the monitoring or the watchdog that might exist in the world today, what is preventing fish from that part of the world from winding up on your plate? And since you mentioned tuna, there's one thing, if you are pregnant, if you have a good doctor, they're going to tell you not to eat tuna fish during your pregnancy because of the mercury.
Indeed.
So Just this is some really pivotal information that we're giving today. We hope that you all look into it. One report, if it's okay that I share it, comes out of CBS News. It's titled Consumer Reports Dangerous Bacteria. That'll give you some more background information about the types of foods that they found these bacterias in. So check that out for yourself. It's important.
Indeed. Also, we want to take a look at the food pyramid. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there used to be an old food pyramid. Kind of looked like that, right? And kind of gave you a layout of how you're supposed to eat, what to consume, what was at the top of that. You guys want to go in a little bit about the food pyramid? Because they switched it up with the
Plate
or not
now.
they. The Obama administration actually was the ones who pioneered the whole plate. So this is what we're dealing with now, is a food plate. No more food pyramid. We've got a plate now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at the old pyramid, it seemed like there was more of a balance across the board with everything. Like it wasn't like fruits and whereas you look at this plate, half the plate is fruits and vegetables, which makes more sense. Back then it was kind of a balance, like grains, vegetables, fruits, meats, and things of that nature. It was all pretty much equal as far as those types of things as it relates to your daily, intake of food. But grains, meat, let's see what else, milk, have all been proven to be detrimental to our health.
Right.
So
technically speaking, as far as I do alternative medicine, and a lot of people I treat, take it a step back. A lot of disease comes from inflammation, right? Just to go on a very simple level. And so what you'll find is fruit, nuts, and dairy all cause inflammation. And so I would, I tell most people, if not all people, no fruit, nuts, and dairies. That's the first thing you should stop.
yeah,
Wow.
speaking of dairy, you want to get into the dairy?
Yeah. Before we do, though, one thing I just saw to be interesting when comparing the food plate to the pyramid, there is definitely more vegetables on there, and that's interesting because Obama just allowed Monsanto to feed Africa, basically,
Right.
and they're known for doing more fruits and vegetables. In any event,
Give and take formula right there.
Right.
That's deep.
Give and take. We'll alter this to make people believe that this is the right thing. You're going to profit from this because they're going to buy more of this. And when we get into organic foods later on, you'll see how important that is.
Indeed. But let's touch on the milk.
When you look at dairy, for example, like on a face value, just purely from a face value, when you think about it with logic,
Let's do that.
humans are the only living thing on the planet that stays on milk its whole life. You know what I mean? Okay, so we stay on milk for one thing our whole life, and then it's not even our own milk. It's from an animal that obviously doesn't necessarily share the same genetic makeup as we do. Milk is really just to give a small infant animal, baby, whatever the case may be, the nutrients it needs to grow from a small size to a large size in a short time.
Keyword short time.
Right. Now that's chemicals and harsh conditions and all that aside. That's just purely logic,
Right.
So from that standpoint, obviously it's going to have an effect, different effects on us when we consume it. But when you look at some of the other different things that are going on with the dairy,
Go ahead.
yeah, like for example, pasteurization, which is a process of killing the bacteria in milk that basically allows certain companies to make more profit. For example, now you don't have to have local farmers bringing milk to certain cities, towns, and things in that area. You can have milk come from across the country because now the bacteria that normally would grow, gets killed through that process. Also, what that does is it kills the nutrients. It takes vitamin A, B6, B12, C, and D out of the milk. So now they have to turn around and fortify it and then put it in unnaturally.
And
so
you do see that on the label,
Right.
like vitamin D, E, and it's like, well, if it had it in there,
right. So
why is yours special?
And there's this emphasis on milk does a body good, especially when it comes to children.
Don't forget to pass it on.
And I think one of the things that people need to be reminded of is that cow milk develops the body, whereas breast milk, we're talking about infant development, it develops the brain. And there are plenty of studies out there that shows that breast milk or babies that are breastfed generally have stronger immune systems.
That's a great
You
point.
know, I had a piece of information I wanted everyone to check out. It's on pcrm.org, and it's a really interesting breakdown on the harmful effects of milk. And one of the first thing that they pointed out is there's no proof that drinking cow milk will prevent osteoporosis or injuries to the bones.
That's another one of those.
You know?
Just do this, and then we'll tell you about it later.
Right. And if I could share this, it's a 2005 report through the Harvard Nurses Health Study, and it said that they followed about 72,000 women for 18 years, and it showed that there was no protective effect of increased milk. I'm quoting, consumption on fracture or risk. And then it also goes into this chemical. It's called IGF-1, which they're attributing with different types of cancer in women, one being breast cancer as well as ovarian cancer. And this is all linked to cow milk. So, you know, Jerule is right and exact. Again, I'm here with two authorities about food and beverage, and I definitely encourage y'all to build with them outside of this forum because they have a wealth of information. We're just kind of condensing in an hour, you know, so.
Indeed. Yeah, you know, to add on, as far as the, you talked about pasteurizing, they also homogenize the milk. And a fun little experiment you guys can do at home is go down to a little liquor store, go buy $1 thing of milk.
The liquor store.
The liquor store, you know what I mean?
Right.
And buy yourself $1 thing of milk and put it on your counter and just leave it there. And then you begin to see the milk separate. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. And so what you're actually looking at that point is the pus in the milk versus the actual milk itself. And it's really bad because they leave the, they have these suction devices that they stick onto the cows. And so after so much time, they're not even they're not able to take the suction device off the cow because it gets stuck to them. And then part of, it builds up an infection, part of an infection is pus, and all that gets sucked into your milk.
Right. And that's why they have to use the antibiotics because the cows are sick and they want to try to limit the amount of bacteria that's in the milk. But also they dye the milk because a lot of blood gets into the milk and the color of the milk is not actually white.
Yeah, when you hit me with that one, that was deep.
They are dyeing milk.
Dyeing the milk. And the milk that's so dark that they can't dye it, they turn into chocolate milk, strawberry milk, and things of that nature.
Now, remember when you were younger and you would say things like, oh, man, strawberry milk looks like blood or chocolate milk looks like poo-poo, right? Like, oh, you drinking caca, you nasty. Right? Yeah, you weren't lying. It's so true. It's so true.
Whoa.
That's deep. So I guess we're going to get into a break real quick, and we'll come back after the break and get deeper into the show. Peace.
Peace. Inspiration.
Peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self radio show. I'm your host, Jerule Allah.
Peace, Jerule Allah.
Peace, Ture Allah.
And you don't have to be in the forget your name seat to mess that one up. Indeed. So the call-in number is 323-965-1600. So we're going to get into the next topic, food fraud. So what exactly is food fraud?
Food fraud is when you buy a product and the ingredients that are listed on that product are not actually what the company or the manufacturers of that food item put in to that product.
You mean like I buy some turkey and it's really ham? Or
Exactly. Or you buy some olive oil and it's not really olive oil. Or you buy tea and there's some other stuff in there besides the tea that you purchase off of the counter.
Wow. Now how are they getting away with this? How are you able to say you're selling me turkey and sell me other stuff?
Well, among other things is, we like to tell people that we serve as a watchdog or people that like to monitor this information. And up until recently, there really wasn't what I would consider a reputable watchdog about food fraud. So there's this company called the United States Pharmacopoeia company that actually set up a food fraud database.
Okay.
And you all can look on that, usp.org, or you can just put in a search for food fraud, and that company is going to come up. So I think part of this had to do with, number one, I know in the United Kingdom they had an issue with a couple of grocery store chains that were said to have sold horse meat believing that it was ground beef. Okay, so that being something to cause a scare, make people afraid of what they're consuming in Europe.
Oh, right. No, I was going to say the same thing. If you're already eating
That's what I'm saying.
cow or
Right.
Whatever it is, steak, whatever it is that you're eating, what's the difference if it comes from a horse or if it
Right,
comes
like
from an
you're
ox?
eating something dead. Like, for example, when people bug out, when you hear, like, say in China or in Japan and these Asian countries where you may hear that they ate dog or cat, it's still a dead animal. Like, what makes a dog or cat less consumable than a cow or chicken and these types of things?
Right, because I'm sure there's some professional chefs that could make the nastiest thing taste like it was, it was marvelous.
Seriously.
Right. I think it's just the idea that we as food consumers, we trust a company to sell us a product that has the ingredients in it that, we come to understand that when we buy a product, right, that we're buying tea and we're not buying something else.
Right.
So if you want to look at this report, it said that approximately 170 tons of horse meat travel from Poland to Ireland and other areas in the UK. Of course, all of these countries are blaming each other. So Romania is blaming Poland, and Ireland is blaming Romania and Poland. So if you check out, and this article is all over the internet. You can check out www.mindthesciencegap.org. Tells you about food fraud. And here's the really important part of this, because a lot of times in the United States, when we hear about a food scare or something going on with food, such as you think you're buying ground beef, but you're buying horse meat, that happened in Europe. We don't have to worry about that. There's a company in Europe called Tesco, and they actually sold some of that horse meat to their shoppers. It was found out later. But Tesco actually started a grocery store chain in the United States. It's called Fresh and Easy.
Oh, man.
So
yeah, that hurts. I like Fresh and Easy.
You got to think about the food chain. And also, I know later on we had already built on this. We're going to talk about subsidiary companies. So Tesco, that sold some horse meat to people in the United Kingdom, had a grocery store chain that has since closed called Fresh and Easy. So we have to make the connection between the two.
Well, I guess it doesn't mean it's not fresh just because it's horse meat. So they're not losing out. It's still fresh and easy.
Right.
Now, how about in vegetables and fruits? Because looking at that food plate, I should be eating a lot more fruits and vegetables. So is that safe to buy? If I buy an apple, will I be eating an apple?
I wanted Jerule to build on that one.
Oh, well, I know, when you look into genetically modifying or altering foods, that's one of the things that they do. For example, there was one time they genetically spliced genes from a fish into a tomato. For whatever reason, I guess to make it look more appealing or whatever the case may be. But
Something's fishy about that.
right. So my thing is that they're experimenting with all types of mixes and chopping things up and trying to make things look as. And that's the thing. It's all about the look. It's not about the nutritional value of it.
Right.
It's not what it's giving. It's not what it actually provides your body, but it's about how it looks. So you can go in a grocery store, look at those fruits and vegetables, and you think you're getting a steal when you see an apple this big.
Right.
Without one mark on it and
Right.
it's shiny, and you bring that home and you're like, wow, this thing's lasted for 2 weeks. You think you got over on them because you paid very little for it, but in all actuality, nah, you're getting
Right, they got over on you.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, little do you know, no nutritional value in this apple.
And also, as far as fruit is concerned, if you're buying fruit and it has no seeds in it, that's suspect.
right.
That's suspect. I mean, and
Maybe there's something fishy about that too.
right. What was it? I know both of you were telling me about how you identify fruit as being organic. I know it's something on the labeling.
Yeah, indeed. So on the label, if you look at it on the code, so you'll see you're really looking for. There's 3 different things that you're looking for. 3 different identifiers. If it has 4 numbers on it, okay, that means that it was grown conventionally, but they probably used some kind of pesticides or things like that, which is not so bad. You can clean that off.
Yeah, you just got to clean it.
Right, you just got to clean your food very good, and that's not so bad, right?
So 4 is some pesticides. Okay.
Some pesticides, and you just got to wash it. Not so bad. So then if it has 8, right, now you're dealing with something that's been genetically modified, which is interesting because 8 for us is build or destroy. So those two don't.
So is it the number 8? Or
Yeah.
is it, okay.
So it both starts with the number 8 and it has 8 numbers in it.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So the other SKU, the 4 number one, is just going to have 4 numbers. When you're dealing with the 8 number, it'll start with an 8 and it'll have 8 digits across. And then you have the final one, which is 5 digits, right? And it starts with the number 9, which is dealing with complete. So, yeah, that's the one that you really want to look for. And that's the organic one, the one that's no pesticides. It was grown, normally like fruit and vegetables should be grown.
And if you don't really feel like going through all that, just look at it. If it's small and it has bruises on it, more than likely it hasn't been genetically modified or altered. If it's huge and there's no bruises on it, it looks perfect, chances are there's something a little bit deeper going on there. So.
If it looks like the apple that the witch gave Snow White, don't go to sleep, right? Don't eat that apple.
And it tastes different too. I'm trying to think about, do your taste buds have memories? And I can truly say that to a certain degree they do, because now when I eat a banana, because I'm culture free, which means I'm 40, and I can think back when I used to eat bananas as a child, and they taste way different than they do now.
Right.
It's just a certain taste that you can't really,
No doubt.
you can't deny. It's a little bit different from what you're accustomed to.
No doubt. I found this organic farm in the valley on Havenhurst, for anyone who lives in the valley, right off the 101, pardon myself, the 118. I was right the first time, the 101. In any event, this farm, I bought some strawberries that were awesome. I got some carrots. So I also had some carrots at home that were in the package, those little baby carrots. And so the first thing I did, being me, is I pulled out the real carrot. It's like a Bugs Bunny style. What's up, Doc? And I put out those little baby carrots. You could tell the difference in the color right away. That was the first thing I noticed. And then when you bite into those little baby carrots, it was kind of empty, for lack of a better word. Just it didn't taste like it had anything in it. Versus biting the carrot that was grown organically, it tasted full. You know what I mean? It was all there.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is that most people, especially my clients, when I get to building with them about this stuff, they say, "Well, organic's too expensive." And you got to look at it this way: either you pay now or you pay later. You're gonna pay at some point, but why not pay now so that you can be healthier instead of avoiding the hospital bills later on in life?
Right, exactly. I was going to say the hospital bill is more expensive than eating organically.
Exactly.
On that note, we'll be back after this short break. Peace.
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 Peace, peace. Welcome back to the Knowledge of Self show. I'm Jerule Allah.
Peace, Jerule Allah.
Peace, Ture Allah.
Indeed. So before we left, we were kind of finishing up with food fraud and dealing with vegetables and looking at the SKU on the vegetables to figure out, what was good for you, what was not good for you.
I don't want to eat anymore.
Really what I end up doing when I go shopping, it's kind of an experience. It's really complex because you can't just shop at one spot. Kind of when we'll get deeper into these other topics, we'll look at that. But I end up going to like 3 or 4 different places just to get all the little things that I need to make it throughout the day or the week. Indeed. So let me get you guys that call-in number. That's 323-965-1600. If you guys want to call in, add on. So let's go in. Solutions for food dilemma. What's the deal? How can, you said you don't want to eat anymore, but
right.
We can't stand out in the sun and get food.
I think one of the things that we mentioned is the U.S. Pharmacopeia Convention. That's a really great database for food fraud. And one of the things that comes out of that research, if you go back and look at all the research, something as simple as your juice, they found that companies were using clouding agents, and this is a word that Jerule taught me to pronounce, phthalates. They're using phthalates. Some companies were using that to make their juice, quote unquote, more appealing.
Wow.
And phthalate is a plastic.
Yeah, toxic.
Right. And aside from that, the common products that they found were fraudulent. I'll just read a few of them to you. Shrimp, lemon juice, maple syrup, olive oil, among other things. And
fraudulent shrimp. Wow.
Right. Picture that. And it's just a really nasty list of things that is really going to surprise you. I know I read one thing about how coffee actually has filters. Some companies were using coffee filters to make up the difference between the amount of coffee that they were selling. Just crazy stuff, man.
That is crazy. How do you use a filter to make up for Isn't a filter supposed to filter things? Yeah, I'll just leave that one alone.
Round it up, brother.
Yeah. So let's go in a little bit more. So what are some alternatives for these things? You know, wheat, bread, milk. You know, what can you do as far as if you're going to eat meat? Which, if you're going to eat meat, I suggest that you don't eat much of it and you eat more vegetables than you do meat. But
Right. Yeah, try to limit the meat. But also, if you're going to eat meat, definitely look for meat that hasn't been treated with antibiotics, and that they haven't used growth hormone and any animal byproducts with it.
And don't get mad, PETA people. Buy your own chicken. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but
Buy your own.
yeah.
Raise them, and
Is that how much is that? Is it really expensive buying your own? And
no.
no, it's not. My mother-in-law bought some chicken. And yeah, it was an ill experience. You know, my mother is from the country, so she's definitely experienced that. I've never seen it in the physical until that moment. Yeah, that was interesting. But
$20.
definitely. Yeah, it's affordable.
yeah, that's not bad.
And you buy them young, and you can tell if they have flu or not. True indeed.
Yeah, so some other things you could do, a lot of us like to eat out. There's different places that you can go to where you can get more of a cleaner type of food. One of the places, I've been to is a Veggie Grill. It's a little expensive, but like I said, you pay now or pay later.
It's like $10 a plate.
Yeah,
roughly.
I mean, it's not too bad. It's not McDonald's cheap, but,
Right.
it's a lot better for you.
And they love the community because one of my friends developed a relationship with the people at Veggie Grill.
Okay.
And so they gave him a really good deal so that he could bring the food over to our high school.
Wow.
And
Okay.
the students ate it. That was funny. Watching some students just eat it. They were like, it tastes a little different, but it's pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, so Veggie Walkery, I've never heard of that place. Is that you?
No.
That's out there in Cerritos, California. So they have Chinese food, but it's a Chinese food recipe, but it's all vegetarian. They don't sell meat at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still wouldn't eat the sweet and sour pork, even though it's vegetables, but it's just
Just on principle, right?
right. It's just, I can't eat it, man.
I'm not mad at that. Follow Your Heart was one, and that's in the Valley. That's a great spot. They don't sell any meat there. Everything is organic and naturally grown and raised.
Yeah,
That's also like a grocery store / restaurant, so you can do a little both there.
kind of like Simply Wholesome, another place in Los Angeles. You can, some of the things there aren't. Just keep your mind open when you go in there. Like, you're gonna eat a little bit cleaner there, but obviously not everything there is like of the highest quality, I'll say. But
Right.
they
And-
definitely provide more options, and their health food store is great also.
Okay, yeah, and that kind of goes to my point earlier that I was making when I go grocery shopping is, just the certain things that you have to buy at a certain spot.
Yeah, and you just
This is
have to
better
be your own. You have to be self-governing. You have to really be your own, scientist and examine different things to figure out what's best for you and your family. You know what I mean? Don't rely on the government and these
Right.
organizations to do that job. Like, you have to be the one. So
No doubt. And I think that's important too, because when you look at govern or government, right, that's dealing with limiting. Or you put a governor on your car, you can only go so fast. So, you definitely, and when you look at what the government has done as far as the food and, what they limit you to real food versus, this GMO.
yeah, they're
Fake
allowing
food
the
that
stuff
they
to
get
go
you.
on. So obviously, we
Right.
gotta
You got to
look
be the
out
one
for
to do it for
ourselves.
yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
But, and it's definitely possible to do. I think we covered the story where this young girl, I want to say in Europe somewhere, actually wrote about a chemical that they put in the Gatorade. And because of her story, a bunch of people got behind it, and through that movement, they lobbied Gatorade to stop using that product. And so now in Europe, they're not going to use that.
Wow.
Wow.
So there definitely is
positive.
power in the people, and you guys just got to stand up and say something.
Right.
Right.
And just if I can encourage people a little bit more about doing the research that we're all advocating, check out www.fda.gov. It's called Food Guidance Regulation. and it's titled The Sanitation and Transportation Defect Through the Food and Drug Administration. And this is a really disgusting piece of information because it tells of what percentage of things the FDA will allow in food.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And there's actually a list of 10 things if you want to, put in a search on that. FDA list of 10, I guess.
Allowed.
Allowed.
Food allowances.
Allowed food defects. So it's a whole list. It shows you about how some mushrooms may have maggots in them. Right. This is current information. All the way down to, fruits and berries having bugs in them. But this particular document, it shows you the percentage of things that are allowed. So, for example, chocolate and chocolate liquor, insect filth. So it says the average is 60 or more insect fragments per 100 grams. So when it exceeds that, that's when they'll pull the food item. It's a whole list of stuff on here.
Yeah, milk, they have the same thing with the pus. There's a certain amount of pus allowed in milk, and after that point, they don't allow the milk to be produced. But ours in America is much, much higher than the world, so I thought that was interesting.
Why don't they do that with, there's a certain amount of cocaine you can do, and then after that, it's bad for you. They're going to take you to jail. But as long as you're within that limit, you're free to be coked out. So. It's insane. It's insane. You guys got anything else you want to add on? Kind of closing up the show here.
Oh, the announcement in Atlanta?
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Yeah. You want me to? Okay, so this was given to us by our beloved family in Allah's Garden. It's called Atlanta to everyone else. And it's called the Allah's Garden Food and Clothing Assistance. And basically what they're trying to do is raise funds and get supplies for a school supply drive that's coming up. You can contact Queen Bee Unique Earth at 404-992-4553. Again, that's 404-992-4553. Or Queen Eye Wisdom at 443-413-6566. And they have an email, godmart@allahsgarden@gmail.com.
Okay. Awesome. That's what's up. Yeah, and that's a good thing, especially after dealing with this show. Don't send any processed packaged meats. And if you can't if you can't add on to this directly, start something like this in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah. Find a group of people likewise, or just any school. I'm sure can use any type of help with food, pencil, supplies, any of those things. So that's always a great thing to add on to. As always, we have our do's, read, and view. And so the do we have is visit a website called notinmyfood.org and download a petition to help Trader Joe stop selling meat that uses antibiotics, and bring that to your local Trader Joe's. And I guess send that in maybe to like a manager or something like that to make sure it gets there. As far as read, A Taste of Life by Supreme Understanding. That's a great book, and that's dealing with
some really great recipes around the world.
Yeah.
All vegan recipes.
All vegan, even better. Even better indeed. And with the View, we got The Future of Food and Food Inc. One of those I think is available on Google. You can just Google it, and if you have Netflix, you should definitely be able to watch both of them.
Yeah, another one is Forks Over Knives that goes more into the statistics in cancer as it relates to milk and dairy and stuff like that.
Right.
And another good book to check out is called The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is pretty good too.
The Omnivore's Dilemma. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Okay, indeed. So, in closing, anyone who's in the LA area, head out to Lamont Park. We'll be there, and the Gods will be there building always, as we do in the last day of the month.
YouTube.
Hit the YouTube. You want to give them the link to YouTube and
YouTube.com /KOS 9 and the Facebook is Facebook.com/KOS.radio show. So jump on those, subscribe, check us out, give us your insight.
Indeed. All right, peace. Catch you guys next Sunday.
Peace.